My name is Greg Jones. I'm the director of the Division of Business Communication and Environment. I wanted to introduce our speaker today, Jamie Schectman. I'm going to read a little bit of his bio here for you. He's a lifelong ski bum and serial entrepreneur. He's the CEO and co-founder of Mountain Riders Alliance, an organization designed to assist independent, community-focused, at-risk ski areas to innovate and to remain sustainable. Originally from Lake Tahoe, he currently serves as the Director of Sales and Marketing for Mount Ashland and is a board member for Incorporate Olympic Valley, a grassroots movement designed to create California's next town. So join me in welcoming Jamie.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. So today I'm going to talk about the importance of community ski areas to the surrounding communities and the overall health of the ski industry. So just a little bit about myself. I got my start as a ski bum. I was an 18-year-old. I wasn't ready to go to college yet. I just graduated from high school, and I said I'd take a year off and move to the mountains and figure it out. Well, that sort of turned into the rest of my life, and since then I've been lucky enough to ski around the world, and skiing is what makes me click. It's a part of me. And so through the years of being a skier, I really became concerned about the direction that our ski industry has taken. It used to be that skiing was about uphill transportation and just providing a good wholesome fun for the whole family. Then in the 80s and the 90s, big business entered the ski industry, and it went from just about skiing to about these other amenities. Now we have large-scale real estate development, and a lot of these bigger ski resorts have really taken the focus out of the skiing and more focused on big business. And some are even doing indoor water parks and other theme park attractions, very much like Disneyland, only in our mountains. My home mountain is Squaw Valley, California, Lake Tahoe, and I'm not so proud to admit that we have the world's first ski in, ski out Starbucks. The ownership there is really focused on creating this 5-star experience, but really they're not focusing on the skiing so much, and us skiers are being affected by it. Prices are rising, and it's not a skier first mentality anymore. So here's some stats on what's going on in the ski industry as of last year. First of all, the average window lift ticket is $93 nationwide. The only demographic increasing in participation are those with making $150,000 a year or more and have a net worth of over $500,000 a year. So really, the rich are the only demographic that are really growing in participation in the ski industry. There's a huge decline in lower income visitation, and the biggest decline is from Gen X and Gen Y. The younger folks aren't joining the sport nearly as fast as pre-boomers and baby boomers are leaving the sport. Snowboarding is also steadily declining, and the biggest drop-off is actually in women between the ages of 42 or 50, and there's a very low minority participation. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see when you connect all the dots that the ski industry is really in trouble. So in the 80s, there was 740 ski areas in North America. And since then, it's dropped off, and last year there was 470, and after this horrific year that we're having on the West Coast, I expect that number to go down even more. So that's a full third of these ski areas are declining. And it's the smaller community ski areas are the ones that are at risk the most. The big resorts, they're okay, they're well funded, they're usually part of this bigger equation with the real estate and the theme park attractions that we spoke of. But recently an industry expert came out and said 31% of today's ski areas are at risk of dying. And that's huge, because these smaller community ski areas are a big part of the whole ecosystem of the ski industry. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the biggest challenges facing smaller ski areas are rising expenses, energy, insurance, payroll. They also have aging infrastructure. We'll talk about Mount Ashland in a moment, but Mount Ashland's 51 years old. Some of the original lodges there, the chairlifts are old. The smaller skiers have a really tough time having access to capital for improvements that keeps them viable and competitive. Also, climate change is a huge challenge. I mean, let's look what's happened here in Southern Oregon. Last year, Mount Ashland didn't have enough snow to even open for the year. This year, we've opened and closed 3 times. We've operated 21 days. Typically, 90 days is an average year. So, this gentleman is in flip-flops and shorts in February. And so, climate change is playing a huge role in the ski industry, and especially the smaller skiers. And the declining population, the participation in Gen X and Gen Y is huge. Back when I was a kid, we didn't have to compete with all sorts of other things and gadgets and things. Now, there's so many things going on, it's much harder to capture people to go ski in the winter. So, I use this slide to really kind of underscore what's happening. You've got these big resorts that are coming in and buying these private equity firms and private capital are coming in and buying these mega resorts. Meanwhile, these smaller independent ski areas are getting squeezed out. And it's like when a Walmart moves into town and squeezes out a mom and pop. And it's homogenizing our industry, and it's a real concern. So the importance of what I call these feeder breeder ski areas, like Mount Ashland. They're entry-level ski areas. They're like the gateway drug. It's like this idea that these smaller ski areas are much less priced. They're much less intimidating. It's a great place for kids to come and learn the sport before they graduate to the bigger mountains. You know, there's very few sports where multiple generations actually recreate together. I can't think of too many other sports where you and your mom and dad all hang out and do something, but skiing is one of those. And it's a rich tradition. I got to ski with my parents, and it's a really important thing to do in the winter for a lot of people. So we're going to talk about Mount Ashland. That's our local ski area here. For those of you who haven't been there, it's 30 minutes away and 4,500 feet above us in elevation gain. So it's much cooler. We have 2 to 4 feet of snow up there right now, if you can believe that. It's been a ski area since 1964. This is the construction of the original lodge. In 1963, they started building it. And so here it is. Well, not today, unfortunately, but in a good year, that's what it looks like. That little round ball on top, if you're wondering, is it's called the big round thing, is its nickname, the BRT, but it's a radar. It houses a radar that depicts precipitation, in case you ever wondered what that is. So here's some stats on Mount Ashland. So in 1993, it became a 501c3 nonprofit. It's one of only 20 ski areas in North America out of 470 that actually have a nonprofit status. And nonprofit status is great for several reasons. One, we get a lot of donations from community members, and that's what helps keep the prices down. These donations are tax deductible, so donors not only feel good about their donation, but they get a tax break on it. Also, as a 501c3, we get a lot of breaks on prices, media, marketing. A lot of people want to hitch their cart to our ski area because we're a nonprofit. And then lastly, when we make a profit, we don't have to pay taxes on it. So for a ski area like Mount Ashland, it's actually a really good entity to hold in it. We typically average 70,000 skiers per year. This year, for reference, we're at 10,000 with a month and a half to go. So we're going to be way under that. But typically it's 70,000. We have 135 seasonal employees, about 5 full-time. But it's a huge economic driver in the winter months. Last year, when Mount Ashland wasn't able to open, businesses and restaurants and hotels reported about a 15% loss here in Ashland from a typical winter. So the ski area is not only important for recreation and to have fun, but it's an economic driver. It's a fabric. It's a part of the whole community. So there's a base elevation of 6,500 feet. Over the last 5 years, we've averaged 265 inches of snow. So that's 22 feet of snow in a typical year. The average, or the adult weekend lift ticket is $46. And as I mentioned earlier, an average daily lift ticket is $93 nationwide. So it's literally 50% less than the industry norm. And that's the importance of these smaller community skiers, is there's a lower barrier to entry, it's a lower price. People can check out the sport and join it without having to break the bank. And so that's really something I want to underscore with the Mount Ashland of the world. They're really a big part of the overall ski industry, which is $3 billion annually. So last year, Mount Ashland didn't receive enough snow to open, and as a result, they had to take out a Small Business Administration emergency drought relief loan for $742,000 to stay in business. Had they not had that loan, I wouldn't be talking to you guys today. It was dire. They have a 30-year payback. I think the percentage is 2.3 or 2.4%. It's a pretty low payback, but literally the government came in and helped save the mountain. Something that I'm really proud of that we just completed is we have reestablished public transportation to Mount Ashland. The idea is that Mount Ashland is a trusted community resource, and it needs to be accessible. So we have 3 stops, one of which is here at SOU. It leaves on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I think it leaves here at 8:20 in the morning, and SOU students pay just $5 round trip. So if you like coming up and skiing, it's a great opportunity. I think it's at Lot 1 is where the pickup is. There's more information on our website. But if you're feeling inclined to come up to the mountain, we now have public transportation, which we think is huge. We've operated only 21 days this season so far, and sitting at about 10,000 skier visits. Typical season's 90 days, 70,000 skier visits. So we are once again faced with some major challenges going ahead. I would characterize Mount Ashland as being an at-risk ski area, and if it goes away, it's likely that enrollment will decline here at Mount Ashland. It's likely that people will move away because they don't have a ski area in their backyard. So it's a big deal. So here's what I identify as the keys to success at Mount Ashland and a lot of these smaller skiers, but specific to Mount Ashland. Focusing on non-snow dependent recreation. When I say non-snow dependent, I mean stuff like zip lines, rock climbing wall, music events, reunions, retreats, things that don't rely on Mother Nature's white stuff to come down in order to stay in business. The other thing that non-snow and summer recreation does is it can keep employees around year-round. The challenge with these smaller skiers is they have a very limited year-round staff, so each year you have to go through the rehiring process. And interestingly enough, if you think about it, the first part of the season is the busiest, which is Christmas week. So you have 130 new employees starting right when it's busiest. It's like throwing them to the wolves, so to speak. So if we have summer recreation, we can keep more people around year-round. Another big key to success, and this is in any business, not just ski areas, but is to develop and cultivate and enhance partnerships. One of the reasons that I'm here today, quite frankly, is because we identify SOU as a huge partner. You guys have 6,000 students. Students come here for skiing and to ski and to have fun and be in the outdoors. So really taking the time to build these partnerships, and that's a lot of bandwidth. I don't know how much they talk about it in business school, but there's something to be said for building partnerships and making friends and knowing people. And that just goes a long ways towards successful any business, whatever it is. The continuing community engagement. We've done a really great job at this recently. I was hired on as a consultant in July and then hired to stay on as sales and marketing director. And during that time, we created a crowdfunding campaign called The Next 50 Years. We did a community survey. We had over 1,400 responses. We asked people, what do you think about your mountain? And that community engagement is 2 ways. It gives us the tools and data to help tweak our model to serve our guests better, but it also makes people feel heard. And even if you don't listen, if you ask, people feel heard. But we did listen. But one thing we're going to do is evaluate all the revenue centers. Food and beverage, ski lessons, rentals, repairs. There's a lot of things that we think could be done better, and so there'll be some evaluating of that over the summer. Grow the market. As I spoke of earlier, the minority participation is shockingly low. It literally is a white guy sport right now. Meanwhile, here in Oregon, you have think I heard something like 68% increase of Hispanics in the last decade. There's a Native American culture here that's not being embraced. So we really want to grow the market through programs. I used to live abroad in a Spanish-speaking country, and I want to start something called the Vamos a Esquiando, or Let's Go Skiing program, and go after minorities that might not have access to the ski area and say, hey, come on up, check this out. You might actually like it. Also on Mount Ashland, it's a really biodiverse area. There's all sorts of crazy birds and unique flora and fauna that you don't see in a lot of other places, and you definitely don't see down here 4,500 feet below in valley floor. So we want to take advantage of that. If that's things from bird watching seminars to leading tours in the summer and wildflowers and stuff like that, it can certainly be much more of a year-round recreation destination than right now, where it's only operating 4 months out of the year. One of the things that I'm strongly a believer in, and one of the reasons that I founded my organization, is that I think ski areas should be energy centers. Energy is the number 2 cost in the ski industry after payroll, typically. And also, the ski industry has the most to lose by climate change. So why aren't ski areas making energy on site? We have a ski area that we manage in Maine, and we just installed 803 solar panels, and now we offset 70% of our energy on site right there. So it flatlines your energy expense. As you guys know, more and more business or folks are supporting businesses that have a green focus and are environmentally responsible. And we put our solar panels, it's about 1.25 acres, we put them right across the street from the parking lot so that all of our skiers and guests see it each day. And this is in New England. This is in a really harsh winter climate. But the idea that we put them in the parking lot is to show people, look, you can make energy even in the winter months, even in Maine, which is cold and not always sunny. So, I'm going to suggest the renewable energy potential for Mount Ashland's future, and to host more year-round events. It's a beautiful venue up there. There's a lot of opportunity to use it. It really sits empty most of the winter, or most of the summer, the 4 months that we're open, typically December to April, and then it kind of shuts down from April until the following December. So a lot of opportunity to do fun things there, and we look forward to working with SOU and hosting some events up there. So that's the end of my presentation. For me, skiing is my life. It's my passion, but it's a really important part of the overall health of a community. And there's a lot of these smaller ski areas that are all at risk right now, and we're working on innovative solutions to keep them afloat. So we hope to have some of these students be more involved with SOU moving forward, or with SOU students being more involved with Mount Ashland moving forward. And I'm always available if you want to talk about ideas or throwing a fun event up there, or just coming up for a day of skiing. So thank you, and do you have any questions? Yes?
How has the freestyle skiing industry played a role in, I know in like the big resorts, they've killed it, but on the smaller resorts, how's the freestyle ski industry affected their sales?
Freestyle ski industry meaning?
Park skiing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So parks.
Because I know that's also a big thing about why snowboarding is declining, because kids have found out, you can put twin tips on, it's easier to ski, it's more fun.
Yeah.
You can do way more tricks.
So parks are really energy and snowmaking intensive. When you have very limited snowfall amounts, it's hard to move snow around and keep the park open.
Yeah.
Also, it's tough for smaller skiers to justify the return on investment for parks. Parks don't always sell more tickets. They're like a complement to, okay, I'm going to go to Bachelor because they have a killer park and mom and dad can ski. So it's tricky for smaller skiers with limited resources. They're just trying to pay the bills to have a really good park.
Yeah. I was looking at the case study between Mount Hood Meadows and Timberline, and for the past 5 years, Timberline has made like a world-class park. They've had like West Coast sessions, which is where all like the professional skiers come in for like a weekend. And so a lot of my friends, they would not buy the Meadows ticket because one, there's better skiing at Meadows because it's steeper, and they'd just buy like a Fusion Pass, which was like Timberline and Ski Bowl, just because Timberline has that park. I mean, terrible terrain. It's flat.
Mm-hmm.
But they spent all their money on this park, and now it's just like a pretty successful area.
If I could close my eyes and dream, I would say that what a place like Mount Ashland should do, and maybe I'll put this in my notes and do it myself instead of saying I should do it, is finding a corporate sponsor to come in and
Exactly.
sponsor the Nike Park or the Harry and David terrain park or something, and get some subsidizing or somebody to attach their name to it. I think there's a lot of play there. But the challenge at Mount Ashland is we have limited space and we have limited snow most years.
Yeah.
So it's a delicate balance. Yes. Yes.
Is the resort and not actually here today, the entire mountain biking place or just slopes?
So Mount Ashland is actually owned by the Forest Service, and we operate under a special use permit. It's a 40-year permit. So the land owner is the public, is the U.S. Forest Service, or it's our land. And I would say about 25% of ski areas operate under Forest Service permit. So we have a special use permit. It's a 12-month permit. We're allowed to recreate on it in the winter months like we are, but we can expand to summer recreation.
That's the second part of the question. So I'm out in Jacksonville, and the comments of like downhill mountain bikers that want to jump. I'm not sure what right now.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if someone is in the way when it comes to some kind of weather, if they're considering it some kind of downhill track that would be a very popular solution.
So mountain biking, particularly right now, there's amazing car shuttle that starts right by the top of Mount Ashland and ends up in Lithium Park. The problem with having lift-served mountain biking at Mount Ashland is it's really steep. For those of you who haven't been up there, it's a steep mountain for a small community mountain. And the best lift-served mountain biking is more gentle, quite frankly. The other problem is the top of the watershed. We have a lot of environmentalists that watch us very keenly, which they should because it's the top of the watershed. So there would be a lot of challenges with erosion. So we looked at mountain biking, but we think there's probably better things like zip lines, rock climbing walls, a bungee jump, and those sort of things that are less impactful. The minute that you put a shovel in the ground, the permitting process becomes way harder on public lands. So if we can find things like zip lines and things that we're just attaching to trees, we can kind of, I don't want to say sidestep, but we can move the process along faster. So mountain biking has been identified, evaluated, but not likely to occur.
Slide.
Yeah.
Like they do at Ski Bowl in the summer.
Yeah.
That's a pretty also successful place.
Yeah, the alpine slides work pretty good. The challenge with Mount Ashland is that except for the one beginner lift, the other lift is down the hill. You'd have to walk down to ride the lift up to go down. So that's why we like the zip line idea, because we can integrate a zip line that starts at the lodge and goes down like towards the bottom of the aerial chair if you've been there, and then you ride aerial chair to the summit, and then you can zip line back. It would be a really cool thing. You'd end up going to the highest peak in the Siskiyous at 7,500 feet and zip lining off the top of there. And in the summer months, it's easily 20 degrees cooler most of the year. So I mean, if people are here for Shakespeare and other things in the summer, and they're waiting around until 7 o'clock and it's hot, if we had a kiosk downtown and said, "Come on up and fly through the Siskiyous," we think it would be really productive.
Jamie, are zip lines regulated to any degree?
Yeah, a little bit, but there's one in Cape Junction now, and there's
But do you have to get a permit? And who issues the permit?
the Forest Service.
Forest Service?
So in 2011, there's something called the Ski Area Recreational Enhancement Act that was passed. And the reason that it was passed was to allow ski areas operating on public land much easier ability to get things permitted. And so they identified what is allowed and what isn't. Theme park attractions aren't, roller coasters not so much, but things that are more holistic, that are more nature-based, that have an educational component, are totally within the ski area enhancement act. Zip lines mean.
It just makes me think about it. If I own a piece of land and I want to put up a zip line, what would I have to do to do that? I know that we're talking about federal land in this case here, But I mean, could I just go put one up on my property?
Sure. Our general manager at Mount Ashland, I'm told, he actually had in his backyard in Maine before he came out here, he had 6 zip lines, and all his kids and their friends it was the most popular house in the neighborhood. So,
Sure. And then going back to the mountain biking one, mountain biking is clearly more erosion potential than skiing, because of the nature of what's happening. Yet we allow mountain biking throughout the entire watershed. Yet if you guys went to do something, you probably would never get it approved.
that's correct. So for those of you who haven't followed along, and I'm in full transparency, I've been here. I only arrived in Southern Oregon in July, but there's a large environmental community here, and there's been an expansion at Mount Ashland that's been proposed for the better part of 20 years, and over that time, this environmental community has been very vocal, as they often are, saying we don't want you to expand, we don't want you to cut down beautiful old growth trees. And whether you agree or not, that's the reality that there's a large group. So you're right that anyone that's learned anything in business, you got to pick your fights, or in any relationship, and really figure out what you can win and what you can lose. And I don't think the mountain biking will go very far, and I also think there's such an abundance of it now that the lift-serve mountain biking that's really effective in the ski industry are ones where they don't have a well-developed trail system already. Mount Ashland, or the Ashland area, has some world-class trails everywhere already. So we think there's only one zip line in the area, and there's none coming from 7,000 feet down. So that's what I think makes more sense.
So what are the operations, like location for your organization? I hear you're all the way over on the East Coast, and you're here, like you just have a bunch of locations?
Yeah, we have 4
like
projects.
entity where you communicate via email and stuff, or is there like a center for operations?
Center's where I slept last night, mostly with an internet connection. But we have actually 4 projects we're working on. We manage a ski area in Maine called Mount Abram. I work as a sales and marketing director here at Mount Ashland. We have a ski area that we're in the permitting process on Alaska's Kenai Peninsula. I'm really excited about that. When that's done, that'll be a game changer in the ski industry. It'll be 3 surface lifts, but I'll have access to 10,000 acres of terrain in the Chugach that you would normally require a helicopter to access. It's going to be awesome. I hope I'm alive and strong when it happens. We've been in permitting, takes a little while these days. And then the 4th project that we're involved in is a ski area that was last operated in 2005. It was an at-risk ski area, and the husband and wife divorced. Neither one of them wanted to take over the ski area, so it closed. So this community came together and said, we want our ski area back open. They've been 3 years into the process, and so this is their summer where they want to purchase the ski area and get it reopened. So, but since you asked, the bigger picture of the Mountain Riders Alliance is to create sort of a consortium or portfolio of these like-minded ski areas, whereas by working together we can drive down expenses and increase efficiency. It's kind of like a franchise. One great example is insurance. Right now, ski areas that are small, their insurance premiums are pretty high, but as you ramp up and have more skier visits, the premiums go down a lot, not incrementally. So we're looking into creating an insurance pool to diversify each of the ski areas, but also to lower the premium of each. So that's kind of the entrepreneurial approach that we're taking to the ski industry to help these smaller active ski areas. So the short answer is we're headquartered wherever. It's an online thing, and I go from place to place, and we have other people on the ground and the other skiers too.
Is that a 501c3 or?
No, we're a for-profit.
For-profit,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Just really quick, are you having similar problems all different locations?
Similar problems with
climate change and
Yeah.
last season, not opening during the season.
Yeah, some skiers are better insured against climate change because they have snowmaking capacity. One of Mount Ashland's biggest challenges is they don't have enough water. They don't have any water to make snow. So our ski area in Maine, we have a snowmaking system that once it's 29 degrees or less, which it is often, we can turn on and literally make it snow. But climate change is huge. You look at the whole West Coast this year, the Sierras, the Cascades, the whole West Coast is hurting, like 20% or less of normal. And this is a big deal. I think you're going to see a lot of distressed assets come up. I think that there's some skiers might vanish altogether if they don't have the funding to stay in business. Had Mount Ashland not received its SBA loan last year, they wouldn't be in business. It's that razor thin. It's that touch and go. And that's what we've got to change. We've got to build it so they have a better chance of survival. Because if they go away, it's a real problem.
I think you said the two biggest expenses for payroll and employees.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then in a year where you just shut down, why is there still $1 million worth of
Great question. Because, well, one, you don't know you're going to shut down. So you ramp up, you spend, in the ski season, you have 4 or 5 months of execution typically, and you have 7 months of planning and building your partnerships and figuring out your price structure, doing the maintenance on the lifts to keep everything current. So you don't know that you're not going to have a season until you're not having it. So it's really tricky, and once you let employees go, it's hard to bring them back. At Mount Ashland, we opened December 19th for a couple days, then we had to close down, then we reopened again, then we closed down, and then we were closed down for 31 days. And when we picked up the phone in February and said, hey, come back to work, a lot of people were like, yeah, right, I got another job. I can't sit around. As it is, the ski industry is not well paid. People do it because they love it. So the employee, the payroll, and the other fixed expenses still exist whether the lifts turn or not. That's something that people don't realize, but you have to keep your lifts current. You know, a lot of off-season maintenance to get the inspector to sign off. Any other questions? Yes.
I was going to ask, so say if, at this rate, it doesn't look like it's going to cool down and not actually has to close here in the next week, do they have enough of like an operating income down to set it up for next year and that one carry over?
Good question. Well, there's 2 to 4 feet of snow actually, and it's north facing and pretty cold up there. So except for the Sonnet beginner lift, we have snow. We have not lost any snow this week on the main mountain. So it's not going to close for a few weeks. As far as the finances, they're tight. And I think that Mount Ashland management is going to hold a news conference in a week or so to talk about that. One thing that we do have as an advantage over a private owner is it is a 501c3 nonprofit. So we can go to our generous donors and say, look, we need your help. And so the short answer is we need more money than we have. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns, do's, don'ts? All right.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your time.